Thank you. I'm going to go in a completely different direction now. One of your devotions that you wrote, you share a time in your life with the participants that are doing this study about being on bed rest with your youngest, your daughter. And you talk about the fact that it got to a point where you and your husband had done everything that you could do, and you couldn't come up with any more plans to deal with the situation, and how you had to learn to just trust him and rely on him. And I guess I want you to just speak to us a little bit about that time in your life and explain to us how you were able to learn to remain worshipful in spite of the situation that you found yourself in.
During that time, I felt like there was no hope except for clinging to the small bit of hope that somehow God would make this good. It didn't seem like it was good. There were no good reports that the doctors were giving us. And I guess probably the continual walking in the way of salvation and living a life, it was almost kind of a habit that I had learned that when things go bad, you turn to God, because it's a discipline that you form in your life that becomes just a habit. It becomes, this is my instinct, this is where I go. The doctors couldn't promise anything good, and so my only hope was in God, and knowing that somehow He would work it for my good. And during that 10 weeks in the hospital, there were a few moments that I think I allowed myself to let go of that hope and faith that things would work out. And I'm sure that I had a good little talk with the Lord about it, and I had my little breakdown. But He always seemed to show grace to me and to call me back to it. And probably the one thing that kept my sanity, and the one thing that kept pulling my focus back to having faith in God and trusting in God, was reading the Bible. You know, the Bible was the thing that kept me going. It was the only thing that kept me from being totally undone. I wasn't, stuck in the hospital. You don't go to church. You don't, you don't necessarily always get to listen to Christian music. You don't get to have a spirit of worship. And whenever your privilege of going to church and worshiping with like-minded people is taken from you, and that choice is no longer there, you learn to treasure it much more. Now, I don't miss church for hardly anything at all, because I value it so much more now, because I didn't have a choice for a long time, and I realized how important it was for me to be around like-minded people that would encourage me. And I know the Bible tells us to encourage ourselves in the Lord, but there are definitely times whenever that's really difficult to do. But the Bible is what kept me going back to the Lord, and the different examples in the Bible of times people worshipped in the most difficult circumstances. And here the Lord was being gracious to me and allowing me to live in a time whenever there was modern medicine. And every day that I laid in that hospital bed was a day closer to my daughter living. And me being okay, and me living through this as well. And so every day was a gift from the Lord, and just reading the Bible and the different circumstances in the Bible helped me to look at the situation more honestly and realize that the Lord really did have His hand in it.
I love to hear you say that it was the Bible, that was your mainstay, because I think a lot of times, I've heard so many people say, well, I was having a bad day, so I just put on good Christian music. And I do think that music is so important, and it helps us to stay focused, and it helps us to connect with God, because we start to feel those emotions that the songwriter has put into the music, but without the Bible. And that's one of the things that Response to Grace is all about, is finding a love for Scripture and spending time in His Word and letting that sustain you. And I think that a lot of times with you being a worship leader, somebody would have been expecting for you to say, when I was in the hospital, what really got me through was I would surround myself with worship music. And that's not what you said at all. It was
the Bible.
yeah. So, but I like that. It's